Yeah, just thank you everybody for joining. So glad to see everyone on here and their avatars. Um, welcome to Women in M365. I almost was like, did I just say women in teams? That would be really funny. Uh, and we have Cathy with us, getting us started with immersive events and teams. So I'm super excited about this one. Let's do it.
All right. So, hey, Cathy Moya, and Teams Immersive Events is just a huge thing for me right now, and I don't shut up about it. So, if you get me on the side, I just constantly need to tell you how wonderful it is. So I get to do that for an hour today. But just to tell you a little bit about myself, I was actually a Microsoft certified trainer for a long time. I did other training before that, and I was a Microsoft certified systems engineer at a couple places, and then I got hired into Microsoft to work initially in training and certification. I spent a lot of time in endpoint management, so System Center Configuration Manager, Intune Configuration Manager. And it was in 2020, and we were getting ready for the MVP Summit, where we bring wonderful people like Rachel and Sharon and Ryan around into Redmond and had this great summit. And they realized in February, we can't do this on the eve of what could be a pretty serious pandemic. So they moved everything to Teams, and I was devastated because I knew that the MVP Summit is more than just open brain and cert knowledge. It's really about people coming together in that space and really sharing, receiving the knowledge, and then rushing the speaker and running into people you haven't seen in 5 years in the hallways. And so I sat down and I actually visualized, gosh, if we could just go in as an avatar in a virtual space and sit next to somebody and talk and send up emojis and have those hallway conversations after the session, wouldn't that be awesome? And it turns out it is. And everything that I wanted to do back in March of 2020 was absolutely possible. I just didn't know it yet. And I found out about 2 weeks later, and I also found out that I could do it without a headset. Because I'm pretty geeky, but those 3D headsets is just like that was like a geek too far for me. So I managed to get myself into mixed reality and then into Microsoft Mesh, which was kind of the first virtual reality experience that Microsoft offered. It has since morphed into moving into the Teams organization and being a more integrated part of Teams, as I'm going to show you. I was laid off back in August. So I thought about all the things that I really loved. And my favorite job at Microsoft was as kind of the ambassador for, at that time, Mesh, and getting people to run everything, all the kinds of immersive events. I did some really fantastic things, and I want to be able to share that. So I've created this group called the Immersive Producer. I don't know if I'm ever going to do it as a money-making thing. Right now, if you want to run one of these events, I will gladly give you my time because it makes me so happy doing this. So what I'm going to do first is just talk about what all this stuff is and why you should care. Like, what is immersive versus virtual reality, and all of these acronyms, and why Teams is really, I think, the best approach that we have for doing this. I have some walkthroughs. We'll have time for Q&A, but if you have questions along the way, I do have my chat where I can kind of see it here, and I'll try to address things as they come in. So would you please get this AI message out of my way? Go. All right. So the alphabet soup, there was the metaverse. It was all the hype until now. AI is all the hype. And there were a lot of acronyms that went along with the metaverse. So VR is virtual reality. And so usually people think of that as I said, those 3D headsets there, like the Quest, but there's also the Pico. And when you go into that, because it's sitting on your eyes, if you physically turn your head, the entire environment changes. So you could do a 360 turn and it's like you are in the middle of a room seeing everything. So it's great for really being immersed in an experience, as opposed to AR, augmented reality. So you can see like those glasses down there that got that little, the weather, the graphs and things. It's just kind of like putting a screen in front of you. It's like a heads up display. Then there is something called mixed reality. So if you heard of Microsoft's HoloLens, they have stopped doing that. But the great thing about mixed reality was it actually took your environment into account. So you can see back here, actually, is my mouse showing? I can't tell if my mouse pointer is pointing. Yeah, it is. Okay. you see that person, it is superimposed on this actual machine. And then over here with step 6, it's showing what the technician needs to fix. So there was some really amazing stuff with that, but you know, it's all about adoption, adoption, adoption. There were some niches that adopted it very heavily and loved it very much, but not broad market appeal there. So Apple now has well, for a while they've had the Apple Vision Pro. They kind of walked away from all the terms over here. So spatial computing is kind of where they're going, but XR, you know, kind of whatever the X is, it kind of stands in for everything there. So you don't necessarily need these devices. You don't necessarily need a wearable. You can do it on what I'm calling a flat screen. So your PC, your Mac, even some platforms work on your phone. Haven't had a great experience there, but it is actually possible. And, you know, so what that looks like is, you know, here's my Surface Pro, which is actually sitting right over here next to me. And I just go in, it's kind of like a video game. So to see what that looks like as I'm walking in it, right now I'm in what's called third person view. So I'm seeing the back of my own head here as I'm looking around the space or the front. And I am moving my mouse or I'm moving my arrow keys to move kind of my camera view on the space. You can even do a kind of a longer distance view there. I actually don't like this view very much. I prefer first person, which is what you're going to see here. So as I'm moving my avatar's eyes, I am seeing the space. And I get this really feeling of presence. I can teleport, I can walk through the space here. I can sit in a virtual seat like I wanted people to do. I can see, you know, the stage. And it really gives me a feeling of being there that is unlike all the things I've been able to do in Teams. So what this gives you, why it matters, why it's going to give you a whole different dimension than what you can do in your Teams meetings. First of all, agency. You saw me walking around that space. I can go anywhere I want to go in there. I can look at the things I want to look at. I am not forced into a single camera view, kind of like we are right now. The co-presence, how I feel when I am with someone, especially in that first person view, I am looking at this other avatar. It's pretty amazing. And I talked a lot about what I called my bachelor moment, where I was doing an onboarding, you know, walkthrough of Mesh for some people. And this was a team that was very geographically dispersed. These people hadn't met each other, but I had them broken up in little one-on-one groups. And these two women who were paired up realized that they both loved The Bachelor. And it's not the kind of thing you might talk about like in this grid that we're all in right here, because everybody's there. But in this little kind of one-on-one off in your little corner, we find people open up more, they share more with that sense of intimacy. And one of the reasons we get that is through spatial audio, which I'll show. I did see Hannah's question, is there a big difference between the augmented and mixed? Yeah, the big difference is really how we are anchoring things. There are actually points called anchors that are looking for things in the space. So if we wanted to sit down and have our avatars in a real space with like real chairs, you would need anchor points to be able to do that, to kind of tell where you are. Whereas augmented is typically just, you know, an overlay on things. Does that help?
Yes, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Okay. All right, so looking at spatial audio, the effect that you get here is like when you are in real space together. So over on the right here, you know, we've got this couple, they're talking, and the couple over here on the left can also be talking in the same space at the same time, which you can't do in a Teams meeting. If I'm talking, you're talking, we're talking over each other. But because of the physical separation of the avatars, you hear the people closest to you. If I walk over here, I'm going to be hearing them. And I even might hear, you know, more on the left when the guy's talking, more on the right when the woman's talking. And if I don't like the conversation, or maybe I hear something in the other group, like, wait a minute, they're talking about this movie I just saw, I can excuse myself, I can walk over to the other group and we can talk. It's magic, but it's one of those things that you don't really get until you experience it. So I'm all about getting people into virtual space and getting them into small groups so you get the multiple conversations. Otherwise, if you're just going to have one person talking, everyone else listening, stay in Teams. This is great. Like you're all just listening to me, you know, it's great for that. So there are a lot of different platforms out there. Verbella is one I've done a lot in. Verbella Go, Women in XR does a lot with Verbella Go. It's really easy. It's web-based. Frame VR is also web-based. Engage is a PC or Mac client. It's a little heavier. Educators in VR is doing a lot in Engage. I've even found some other ones like Mood Up that are, more business centric. Even Horizon Worlds and Rec Room and VR Chat, there are businesses going in and doing things in there like B2C stuff, but they tend to have a lot of kids and it can be like a very off-putting experience, especially for women, unfortunately. So if you're doing immersive events in Teams, first of all, it could be free for you, especially in a little bit here. But I'm going to walk through all of these things about why it is so easy and so free compared to all of the other platforms that I've done stuff on. So first of all, inexpensive. You do not need to buy headsets. You can do it on your standard Mac or PC. If you want to do it with Quest, you can, but I'll tell you some of the drawbacks for that later. Your attendees just need a regular business Teams and Office license because we do use some of the backend like calendaring and OneNote, et cetera. It is not EDU, unfortunately. It is not Gov, unfortunately. We hope that'll come. But as long as you have E3, E5, I have Business Basic, $7 a month, so I can do my tests and demos. If you have guests, and they have to be actually guest accounts in a tenant, then they can join without any licensing. And currently, the organizer needs to either have a free Mesh trial that they've held on to even after moving away from Mesh, or Teams Premium. But there were just some licensing changes announced, I think, 2 weeks ago. And after April 1st, you will get a lot of the Teams Premium features just in standard Teams events, and that includes not needing a Teams Premium license to schedule an immersive event, to be the organizer for an immersive event. So, yay. This should really just make it so easy for people, because if you already have a business version of Teams, you got all you need. You can just go do it. Easy rollout. Well, it's already part of Teams. Unless someone has gone in to turn it off, if you have that Teams Premium now or the Mesh trial, you could probably just go and start doing events right now. So there's no additional purchasing. Like if you go to try to buy any of these other platforms, you probably in an enterprise have to go through a lot of hurdles. There's a lot of diligence that goes into purchasing. And then there are all of the reviews, the security reviews, the privacy reviews, compliance reviews that have to happen. It's all Teams. You have probably already done that. You may not have to do a single other step for it. And even if you do, people trust Microsoft. When I was there, the big thing internally, I don't know if they say it externally, Microsoft runs on trust. I have been through our privacy reviews, folks. They are very intense. And, really striving to be trustworthy is a major thing there. So it's the same firewalls, it's the same endpoints. It's really just there, unlike any other platform you might want to use. So Beth said the announcement along with coming unified event experience. Yeah. I was in there when
I'm trying not to laugh because I'm like, what?
I don't know what they're saying publicly or whatever, but my big hope is that, because of all of this, right now the immersive events haven't been part of that, but I know the idea is to make it part of everything there. So hope some good things come in. So creation and customization, once you get that license, especially after April 1st, you just create it like you create a webinar, like you create a town hall. It's there in the same menu, in the Teams calendar, not the Outlook calendar, like webinars and town halls right now. So that is sort of part of that immersive, the unified event experience. I've had people say, well, how long does it take to customize a meeting? How difficult is it? And I say, well, PowerPoint. How long does it take you to make a PowerPoint deck? How easy is it to make a PowerPoint deck? It can be as easy or as intricate as you would like it to be. And you can do it in 2 minutes, or you can do it in, 2 months, depending on how much stuff you want to build into it. And then the cool thing is now, and this is in public preview, but it is rolling out, you can save the customizations you make as a template. So now you can go and make a new event with all those customizations in 30 seconds. It's pretty awesome. For the attendees, they get a calendar invite. It's just like everything else. When they join the meeting, it's the same join screen like you used to join this today. It just, instead of your camera preview, it has a little avatar thing there because you wouldn't use your camera in the avatar event. There is chat when you're in the event. We didn't have that in Mesh, and it was really a drawback. So now being part of the entire Teams experience and being able to chat there, same lobby, if you have your settings so that people have to wait in the lobby to get in, it's just there. And as we've seen our lovely avatars here, if you've already created this meeting avatar, if you were to be in that tenant and take that into your event, then you would use that same avatar. So it's familiar unless you're using Quest. It is easy unless you're using Quest. Quest, you do have to install a separate app. This Microsoft Teams Immersive is in the Quest store now. And it requires, if people have used a headset, it's not so bad. But if people haven't used a headset, trying to teach them the controls, trying to teach them things like you have to set a boundary within the virtual space, trying to help them navigate the menus when they're just seeing what they're seeing. And the only way you can see is if they're casting to a device, which you can only see if you're right next to them. That is one huge barrier for me for using Quest. And when it's so easy to do the flat screen, and as an organizer, if I only have to troubleshoot one onboarding platform, I am much happier. So my advice is get in there and flat screen first, get comfortable, get used to it. Then maybe later you'll decide you want to adopt, because it is amazing to be, full 360. But stick with flat screen, because you don't have to actually create an avatar to get in. I'll show you later. You can come in as what we call an avacoin. So there's no friction. And there is an easy first run tutorial that I'll show you. If people need to mute or unmute, I've seen this in other platforms, like, where's the mute button? This is Teams. It's where your mute button is right now. That's the same place it is when you go into the immersive event. And they've arranged the initial setup so you don't even need to walk. Sometimes people get confused. If you're a gamer, you know the keys WASD, WASD, and those work. That's exactly how you can walk, or you can use your mouse. But if you're not a gamer, I got really confused. I got my head stuck up in one platform. I didn't know how to move it. And you don't need to worry about that here, because you can just get in, get to the event, and then you can learn that stuff later. So these are all the reasons why I say you got it, just use it, try it out, see if there's value in there for you. And what I'm going to do now is a bunch of walkthroughs. I had to do recorded demos, because if I'm in Teams and I'm trying to enter another Teams meeting, it just gets, a little nuts there. But in terms of your admin configs, if you want to go ahead and, see all of the information that you got here, is this still sharing? Yeah, good. Okay. So this is generally available here. It gives you a little bit of a description of what it is. A lot of the steps, like the preparation steps here, it's the same thing you're doing in Teams. It's the Microsoft Admin Center to do the licenses. It's the Teams Admin Center to, do a little bit of the admin stuff here. If you use Purview, there you go. Sensitivity labels do apply. Hardware, this is for your clients. Mac or PC, 4-core, 8 gigs of RAM. Not huge. I will say bigger is better. I have a GPU in my Surface 10 or whatever it is I have, and it is nice. It does help. Licensing I mentioned, so base license in any of these platforms, but not Gov or EDU. And for the organizer, currently Teams Premium or the Mesh trial until April 1st. The reason why you need Office in addition to Teams is because we use SharePoint to store assets. We use your calendar, so, all the license there. If you want to try the admin trial, there are steps here. I have not actually been able to find this in the marketplace, and I have opened a support case. So, try and talk to my friends back there to say, what up? After April 1st won't be a problem. Right now I'm in the Teams trial. It's like a 1-month trial for Teams Premium, so that's getting me there. Endpoints, firewalls, same deal. They do put a little bit of information here about bandwidth. And then, just some of the, the changes. You might need to have thank you, Richard, a change in configuration process that you're doing here. What's helped us going to say when people start calling in? Branding. Do you want a 3D version of your logo? Do you have a 3D version of your logo that you might want to put into events? Guest access is supported, but you might have to, but they have to be trusted individuals, that is, created in the tenant. They cannot be organizers or co-organizers, and they cannot be cross-tenant or anonymous users. yet. You'll see in some places in the UI, it makes it look like that's going to happen. It's definitely something that they're working towards, but not there yet. I mentioned it's probably already turned on unless you have gone on and turned it off. The team org really likes to just put everything on by default so it can get adoption. And there's your platform. Oh, that actually needs to be fixed. Quest is supported for immersive events. It's only Quest 3. I can't remember if I filed that yet. But not on mobile, not on BDI, unfortunately. This is a nice little section here with some of the limitations. For example, when you do screen share, it doesn't include audio. I find that very annoying. They're working on it. I do have the public preview, and that's why I'm able to see the templates I'm going to show you. Highly recommended, especially in a test tenant. And then we get to the Quest part where I said, yeah, it can be kind of difficult doing all that Quest stuff. This is why. I told you I worked a lot in endpoint management. There are a lot of things like conditional access policies. Quest devices are not hardened for the enterprise at this point. I don't know where they're going with that one, but you end up having to do a lot of management contortions to get it in there, and it may not be where your organization wants to go. So when you go to create the event, and I'm just going to do the demo here because I don't know if I've got it in the tenant I'm currently sitting in. Like somebody showed, I think we got a screen capture. Hannah, yes. So over here, you just go to new, and there it is, immersive event on the line there. This looks like every other event. And of course, one of the things to realize is when you create a webinar, a town hall, and an immersive event, the start date is always set to now, like wherever it is on your calendar. It's not wherever you highlight it. That's another thing that drives me nuts. So make sure you always set your start and end date. The timing is important here because nobody can enter your event until 10 minutes before start time. So that means that, when you're thinking of how to set this up, if you want additional time before you actually start your program, you might need to schedule the start time earlier. And then the other thing is, when you want to customize your event, you have to start the customization at least 10 minutes before the event is going to, at 10 minutes, you will not be able to customize anymore. So allow extra time for that. You go ahead and you do your title, and you can do your description over here, same as any event. Then you get down here to the event organizers. The organizer is always the person who created the event, and co-organizers are anybody in my tenant who I want to help out. So for example, I had Hal come in and help me with some stuff. He has a tenant in here. Then this next part is where it looks like you could have everybody in the public join, and you can't. Right now, it really is just your organization. Later on, they should be adding these in. Then you have the option to invite attendees. And if you add people here, as soon as you publish this event, they will automatically get whatever invitation that you may have set up in the event invitation. And I don't like to do that. I'll show you how you can just share the link later, because like I said, I may want to have people come in sooner and they can't join more than 10 minutes before. So I might set my start time sooner. If I publish the event, they will get that start time. Actually, they'll see the whole thing on their calendar. But in my customized event, I can tell them, yeah, the lobby opens here, but we'll start at a different time. Whoops. When I do that. All right, so then we get the templates down here. And by default, you have 3 templates that Microsoft is giving you. They do plan to add more. I know, some of the ones they were talking about adding. And then if you have the public preview, the other thing you'll have is to be able to use from your immersive collections. They have stated that they will allow you to add your own environments like these. For now, when it says adding your own templates, what you're doing is taking one of these 3, adding customizations, and then saving it. So for example, I have a Women of M365 collection that I created, and I've put all of the template customizations that I've done in there. When I go to pick out of here, it'll pick everything that I put into that collection. Then at that point, I can save and send the invites. Now, once I have saved this, It will not let me change the template at any time. So you'd have to go back and recreate your entire event. That's another reason I often like to just send a link. And at Microsoft, we had AKA links. And so I could just change the actual event link and they would always use the same AKA. So if you have anything that'll do that link redirection, that is my, my fervent recommendation. Because then if I need to recreate my event with a new template or whatever, I can just do it kind of behind the scenes. So once I save this, it is going to send the invites to my co-organizers, but it does not send the invitation yet. It gives me a chance to come in here and customize this invitation like you do for webinars and town halls. It's actually when I publish the event that it would send to anybody on that attendee list. And since I don't have anyone on my attendee list, that's fine. I can copy the link from here. And anytime I want to go back and get that link again, I can just click share event and I'll get that copy. If I schedule this into the future, if you scroll down here, you'll see customize in Immersive. That's when I can go add my stuff, which I'll show you in a minute. And I can also manage my templates from here. So I can see how many templates, I can delete templates, I can add who can get in and use those templates. So that's it. That's, pretty simple making it. Then the next thing would be going in and doing the customization. I could spend probably an hour and a half, 2 hours just on the customization. So what I'm going to do is just show you a very basic element, and a lot of the other elements are the same. Go in, experiment, read the docs, and then I'm going to show you what you can do with these objects once you get them in your environment. So there's a button down here for the customization. Once you've entered that customization session from that button, more than 10 minutes before the event start. And all I have to do is click that. I get this editor pane. And then I can go in and I can add a whole bunch of stuff in here. So like later, I'll show you the icebreaker. I'll show you where the seats are. I'll show you spawn points. I'll show you a screen share that is just like any other screen sharing. Text items. I'm going to add an image for this one. And when you go to add your image, what you're actually pointing to is a SharePoint or OneDrive. I recommend creating a SharePoint for any large events that you're going to do, and then just store all the assets there. Because if you do a OneDrive and somebody leaves the company, you lose access to all those resources. When you go to share the link, I always just share it for everybody in the company. Actually, everybody, because that will include the guests. If you start getting into a lot of protected content like purview or things like that, then people may show up and they'll see is this box here. They won't be able to see the actual content. So I recommend that. Later on, I'll show you what we mean by backplate and enabled. You definitely want to give your images names, because otherwise they all just show up as image and you can't find them in the search. Great, so now I got my image here. And even though I'm looking at this in flat screen, remember the space is 3D. So I just moved this object away from me because I want to get it up against the wall. And so what our brains perceive, perspective, right? We're moving this flat object away. It looks smaller to me. And it kind of looks like it's right up flush against that wall, but you can see it kind of disappeared for a minute there, part of it, because it's not totally flush with the wall. So now that I've got it back there, I want to, kind of get it flush, and I want to make it bigger because, that's the size that people are really going to see when they get next to it. And I usually want to go and check things off here on this other angle, because remember, this is 3D, so I can walk towards it and it looks like it's against the wall, but you can see there's actually still that little gap over there. And then as I start to move it in, you see it starts to disappear again because it's still not flush with the wall. So I can rotate it a little bit more and make it show up where I want it. And that's how I added all the different things here. Very similar process to everything. Then when the attendees go to join, they're going to enter in what's called a spawn point. And these are the spawn points that are preset in this particular Cascades environment. I can change those, I can move those, I can delete them. And often what I like to do in an event is make sure that when people are spawning, first of all, I know where they're going to spawn so I can have all of my volunteers there to greet them, tell them what to do, how to get around the event. Or sometimes these are spawning like facing where I am right now. I could flip them around to face the window, but often what I'll do is include some content on a wall and have them spawn in so they face the wall. So I am controlling the first bit of content they see in that event. It really just depends on what you want to do as you walk through everything. So here are my spawn points. As soon as somebody spawns into the event, what they're going to see is this little tutorial at the bottom of the screen here. Very often people just click next without reading it, or they might not see it and they might not have their menu. So you definitely want to, remind them to, to look down there and take a minute. I've had really good success with people using that tutorial and getting around, people who are at least a little bit computer savvy, and the gamers, they got it right away. But if they missed the tutorial, you can go back to the help menu. And under help, you get first a whole list of all of the controls. There are some that they don't show in the tutorial, like running. And then if you go down just a little bit, there's a basic screen that gives the overview. Sometimes I'll actually copy that and put it up on one of those walls so people see it right away. And they can always go back and replay the tutorial if they want to. So now I'm going to have my friend Drew spawns into the event, and you kind of see him back there. And often what I'll want to do to make things feel welcoming is I will wave. So down here, I have this little emoji button here, and I'm going to go pick the wave. And as Drew walks closer to me, you'll notice that his name tag appears, which is awesome. You always have these name tags. It's one of the reasons that doing an event in immersive is better than in person. I don't have to try to see their name tag. And then the other thing that's really cool about the name tags is you'll be able to see if they're muted or unmuted and if they're actually talking. So right now I can tell he is not muted because I don't see the big mute button there. If he is, I can say, hey, Drew, you're muted. Go find your microphone button. Same as any Teams event. And then when he's actually talking, I can see it. And if I can't hear him, then I know there's a little bit of troubleshooting to do. And as I'll show you later, we have chat. We can use chat to do troubleshooting. I can tell him, hey, Drew, I can't hear you. Can you hear me? Just like you do in any Teams event. So we're talking. Oh, there goes Hal. And Hal, as you'll notice, is not in as an avatar. Internally, this is called the AvaCoin. It just takes whatever your profile picture is. Like I see JBNL, if you have a profile picture or your initials, it's going to come in as this. This makes it so easy for people to get to the event because usually they're late. Usually they didn't read the directions. And so they can just come right on in and then they can do their avatar later. So here we are, we're hanging out, we're talking. Hal can still move around and have that agency and a kind of co-presence. If we need to chat, it's the same chat button up here, right? I can say, hey, is anyone having any trouble getting in? If we do, I usually have volunteers standing by and they can go have a separate Teams chat to try to figure out what to do, even maybe jump into, some teams do some audio troubleshooting, because if it works in regular Teams, it should work in Immersive. It's all the same stuff. So then we have the reactions on the top, and those are like the ones you have right now in this meeting. And then you have the animations down here. Hal, because he is an AvaCoin, can't actually send the animations like Drew is doing because he doesn't have hands. But as long as you have the hands there, you can even dance, and people love that. It is a delighter that is very different than you'll get in the regular Teams experience. Now, another thing we have is the camera down here. So I pulled everybody over here. I said, hey, let's go take a selfie with our camera. So we have to do a little bit of maneuvering. That's where knowing the movement keys help. You can see I have a frame here of what's going to be in my picture. And then I have my buttons here. If I want to take a face-on picture, I can flip. I'm in selfie mode, take my picture and share it directly to chat. Or if you don't share it to chat, it actually is held on your OneDrive. So whatever OneDrive you're using for the account, internally in this tenant, that's where your pictures will be. I mentioned that we have an icebreaker that you can use. It's great down here. So as people click on it, it's just going to change what question is shown. You can remove this when you customize the space. You could have more than one icebreaker if you want to have multiple groups, or you could get rid of this one and just put up images like I had and have different icebreakers, or like gathering points. Like if you want to talk about music, go to this wall. If you want to talk about cooking, go to this wall. And then people can kind of, self-select a little bit. But wait, to talk about the next piece, I have to talk about some little smoke and mirrors first. So when they announced the licensing changes for April, I think you can do a 10,000 person webinar or town hall now. And we can't do that many immersive events. Right now it's 300 at the max. And there's a little bit of smoke and mirrors that goes on with how we get to that 300. Because of performance, when you get everybody in that space, and also the spatial audio, it's like if you really have 300 people in a single room, you better have a lot of space or they're going to have a hard time hearing each other. So what they do is they break it up into rooms of 16 maximum. One of those rooms is where the organizers show up, and then everybody else gets an exact copy of that room. But they don't really know they're in a copy. As long as the organizer has something turned on called Spotlight, you see this little pink dot here is representing that the organizer shows up just like they're in that room with those attendees, even though they aren't actually. So all of the attendees in this room can hear each other. All of the attendees in this room can hear each other. They can all hear anybody on Spotlight. But if I go off Spotlight, they're not going to hear me in this room. And what it does is it fills the room, 16 people first in one, then it goes to the next room and fills 16 people. When you get to the 33rd person, they'll show up in the next room and keep going until you get your 300 people max there. The organizers can move from room to room. So if I'm in the organizer room, I may not see any attendees, but if I move into room 1, I can see them, I can talk to them without being on Spotlight. During the event, I can move around rooms, and it should be pretty seamless, me moving from room to room. And so that lets you do some things. It also has some impact on how you want to organize your event. And I can I could do a whole hour on that. If you want to talk to me personally, I will walk you through how to best design your event with that in mind. So during your event, this is, what it would look like as I'm joining, and I'll show you some of the attendee and organizer experience. So you see, I can start event up there. It only shows up once. If I do that, then I'm going to get this little box here with a lot of different options. So I mentioned spotlighting across all the rooms. This is one of the places I can spotlight myself. Also down here in my menu bar, if I'm an organizer or co-organizer, I can spotlight myself at any time. I don't need this box. But the other settings here, you can only do in this little box. So if you want attendees to be able to mute and unmute, you have to come in here. This is nice because you may want to let them unmute for the social time at the beginning. And then when you hit that start button, people are muted, can't talk. You may want to change the raise hand so it's only enabled at certain times. And did Callahan make it here? This is Callahan's option here. Force attendees to get their butts in the seats. Well, sort of. It will prompt them and say, please, would you like to take a seat? So that's why they don't need to be able to use the movement keys yet, because I can just say, yeah, seat, and they can accept it, and they will just end up there without walking. So you can turn that on, turn it off. If you turn all this on in the beginning while people are doing the social, you're going to have a lot of stuff going on. So I usually like to wait and turn this on, but if you cancel it, you can't go back to it. You have to go back to the people pane, and oops, just go back a little bit here. This is the little thing that you need to click on to be able to get those other options, but the spotlight is always available. So great, I can do all those things. I can cancel, I can start, from here if I want to. So let's start our meeting. I have down here a people pane that's going to show me who is in the meeting. And right now you can see I'm in the organizer room, and I can only talk to the other people in the organizer room because I'm not on Spotlight, and I am alone. This is a big gotcha. I am embarrassed to say how many times I have been in the organizer room, not realizing that people have actually joined. Over here, you can see how many people are in the event now. This is a good improvement. So if I see other people besides me in the event, they're just in room 1. And I can see that by going and clicking on my little rooms thing over here, and it's going to flip for a minute. There we go. So those are all the rooms that I have in my event currently. And if I want to move, there's this little door. I can see 2 people are in there. I'm not seeing them. I can go join that room, and then I can talk to them. So usually the first thing I do when I'm running an event as an organizer is I just jump into room 1. There are sometimes I might run an event from the organizer room. That's a lot of detail I can give you offline. But see, now that I'm in room 1, I've joined room 1. I can see down here I'm in room 1. I can see Hal and I can see Drew have moved into those seats. And I could talk to them directly without being on Spotlight, or now I'm on Spotlight if I want to. They can send emojis. We can kind of have this little bonding moment over here. And if you only have 16 people, this is kind of like what it can be. You just have to move from the organizer room into that room. You do not count when you're an organizer against the 16 people. So it can be 16 people and, your organizers. So great, I've got my people here sending the emojis. But what is it like if you're in the organizer room? I'm going to switch back. And remember that slide I showed you where you can see, you know, everyone sees kind of an exact copy. When I'm in the organizer room, I just see these little dots here. That's how that's Drew. I can see the emojis they send, but I can't actually see the people there. Now you notice Hal has his hand raised. And so I have the option here to open the people panel, and that's going to let me call on people. They have an extra button down here I don't see because I'm an organizer, but anyone who is an attendee can see this panel, and I can call on them. What it's going to do is offer them the spotlight because, again, multiple rooms, people in the organizer or room 3 or any other rooms won't see someone unless they're on spotlight. And you notice here I can have up to 5 people in spotlight at any one time. So I go ahead, I put Drew on spotlight. Here he goes. Close the panel. I can see him off there to the left. He's still got his hand raised. If he puts his hand down, he will go off spotlight. So he can choose, or as the organizer, I can go back in the people panel. I can take him off spotlight, and that will take him off. It can also just send him back to wherever he was if he's moved around here. So that's my during event. And just a couple more things that you can do as the organizer inside. Organizers and co-organizers can do all of these really cool things. Oops, if I get my slide to show. Did I just exit my PowerPoint? All right, try again. All right, my organizer control panel. This little button down here lets me see all of the objects that I've added when I went to customize. I had something disabled. Poof, there it is. Welcome. Everybody can see it here. I can also search for the things that I want. And like over here, I have this little, what I'm calling my my screen share first. So if I want to screen share, it's just like screen sharing in Teams. There we go. I share content. And so what I often do is hide the screen share object at first and then turn it on when I want to use it. I can hide it later. If I want to have videos, I can have things layered over and turn them on and off during the event. Now over here, I mentioned that there is a backplate, and it really doesn't make sense until you see something that is a transparent PNG. So you can see this figure here is a cutout. And so you can see around her as long as I don't have the backplate turned on. If I turn on the backplate, ooh, all of a sudden there's this big thing back there. So you may want to experiment with turning backplate on or off in objects. And you can see that's what it looks like from the back. If I turn it off, then she's just there kind of flat. And if you want to manage a lot of objects like that, then it's hard to do it in the control. So you actually have this other thing called action groups. And that's where you can take a bunch of things and make them all happen with a single click. So I'll show you some fun with that one. In my first thing, you notice I don't have any other objects besides my super excited person here, but I've created an action group so that voila, I just have this orchid and its little attribution thing show up in the beginning. That's a 3D image. And if you go to the Smithsonian website, you can actually find a lot of 3D images that are all completely available, you know, taxpayer dollars at work there under Smithsonian 3D digitation. If you want Lieutenant Uhura's dress from Star Trek, it is in this collection. Or in this case, I'm going to show the orchid I was playing with. There are marketplaces you can go and buy images. You can hire people to make them for you. You can buy, sometimes they're a few bucks, sometimes they're a few hundred. Usually when you go to see the image in a marketplace, you can rotate it like this. And then when you put it in your event, that's when you'll be able to actually decide what orientation you want in your event. So you could have an upside down orchid. When you go to download things from the Smithsonian or marketplaces, you want GLB. That's the format that Immersive Events will accept when you go to do that object adding. And the GLB would need to be on a SharePoint or a OneDrive. So then I want to turn on section 2. I have a whole action that will turn off the orchid, turn on the printing press and the label. And I talk about that. And then when I get to section 3, I turn those off. This really cool prom dress I got from the Smithsonian. And then I want to talk about my little super excited person down here. So you notice we have a little cutout. And I got that from PowerPoint. If you haven't looked at the stock images in PowerPoint in a while, they have added a ton of stuff. Like all these little cutout people are available. Ta-da, there's my cutout transparent PNGs. That's what a little check background means. You have stickers. you have illustrations, and you also have these cartoon people where you can go and add, different faces, different combinations. I love how accessible they made that whole thing down there. So you see down in the bottom left, I have this little wheelchair person, and I took a speech bubble and I put some text in it. So if I want to have all of that in place of my original super excited person, I can do it manually on an individual object, but if I do it with an action group, I don't have to copy and paste URLs. I just have that built into my action group. Super easy. And she's back. So this is an image. This is flat. If we go to the back and look around, she's flat. The image actually shows the same as long as you don't have that back plate on, whether it's the front or the back, but it is flat. If I walk towards it, it's like literally a cardboard cutout you might see like in a movie theater. She's flat. If I look at the dress is 3D. I can walk around that dress. I can see all the sides of it. So you might want to have 3D objects where people can really interact. Maybe it's a piece of your, machinery for your organization. Maybe it's, a 3D model you want, like of your campus coming up, and you want people to be able to walk through it. With the action group, I could turn all of those on at one time. I can turn all of those off at one time. And then I have one that I created called Section End, which will actually change the text in a text object on the fly, which is much easier than trying to do it from the control panel. So thank you. I have all my little sparklies up here. And if I had an animated object, it would actually show the animation on those things. So what do you want to do with this? How much time do you want to spend? I recommend starting small and easy. Like, I don't know if you did any of those happy hours during COVID where everybody is sitting in the Teams grid like we're sitting, and how many you have? We have, a dozen people, more than a dozen. It's great if one person's going to talk. I would always get that one person who wanted to monopolize the conversation and everyone else is just sitting there going, yeah. And my name starts with C. I was always at the beginning. If I left, it would have been obvious. So what I love about doing your virtual coffee or happy hour in an immersive event is you talk to people. If you don't like the conversation, walk over and do something else. And what I try to do is I get a couple people as my plants in there, so we have multiple conversations going when people enter. Because even if you have 16 people, if one person is talking and everyone's sitting around listening, you could have stayed in teams. But if they walk in and there are multiple conversations going, they go, oh, this is what it is. Or I will set up breakout groups. I will do those little one-on-ones to get those bachelor moments going and say, hey, find a buddy, talk about this, and I'll put my icebreakers on the wall or use the one that's built in. Games are another thing that can be really fun. And my favorite above all is using that would you rather or this or that mechanic. And remember that big window we had across the back in that environment? I will say, would you rather have a cat? If so, stand at this end of the window. If you would rather have a dog, stand at this end of the window. And if you prefer both, you can stand in the middle of the window. So what people are doing is communicating by the presence of their virtual body in that space. It's really amazing. You could even do, more 3D options. You could have 4 corners and have people to stand in a quadrant where you want them. So you could do things like, do you prefer rain or sun? Do you prefer fiction or nonfiction? And have people arrange themselves. It's great for conveying what you can do here that you cannot do in Teams. Another thing that I find really interesting is Simon Says, if I want people to learn controls pretty quickly. Simon Says, turn around in a circle. Simon Says, send up a heart emoji. Simon Says, take a selfie and share it to chat. And if people are having trouble, I can have them speak up and say, hey, wait, where do I do that? I can give instructions in chat. It becomes very fluid. And once they've done it, it's a small learning bump. It's not a curve. It's pretty easy to pick this stuff up for the second and beyond events. They're just going to flow right into it. Liberating structures is something I wrote about recently on LinkedIn. It is a form of exercises to take a different tack on brainstorming. Like, rather than try to think, what are all the things we want to do? Take, what are all the things we do not want to do? And how many of those things are we actually doing? And they work really well in these breakouts. I know you can do breakouts in teams, but when people have the agency to move into their own breakouts, it's a much more fluid experience. I also find I lose fewer people because when you do that, oh, we're going to do breakout rooms now, a lot of people drop off the Teams call. You've done it. But when you're in that space, it's like if your avatar suddenly blinks out, it's like, oh, they just left. We know they're not there. And as the organizer, I can walk among the breakout groups, and because of spatial audio, I can overhear what they're talking about or not talking about. Say, hey, maybe we want to get back on track over here. And it's not intrusive like going into a Teams breakout room. So love this. These are super easy things you can do, very low overhead, especially after April 1st when you don't need any kind of special license. If you want to get more detailed, you can spend a lot of time in here. Doing an all hands like I've shown, don't just take your standard all hands and recreate it in immersive, because people aren't going to get anything. Have that social time before. Build in time during the thing where you unmute them and let them talk to each other. Have them move around the space. I saw somebody mentioning that, you know, it's a struggle because like having the audio stuff can make it hard to do training and education. Having the multiple rooms means you have to think more about how am I going to make sure people have facilitators if they need them. But, you know, if things are kept pretty presentational, like I've done poster talks, it doesn't work as well if you set it up like a science fair where everyone is at their booth and trying to talk. Because if you only have 16, it's great. But once you get into those multiple rooms, it's more complicated. Ping me. I am happy to talk you through ways to kind of design your event to take this stuff into account and still get the kind of event experience you want. Exhibits, especially DE&I stuff. Oh, we did some amazing events. We did a Lunar New Year. We did a women's history exhibit that had for International Women's Day, and I worked with all the DE&I groups, so we had women's history from all the women's history, not just, you know, white and cishet women. We really went to bring a lot of people in there, and I would love to set one of those up to do as a public thing, maybe in March. We did Juneteenth. One of my coworkers did amazing Juneteenth. We were going to do Pride. We didn't end up doing Pride in there, but Microsoft does have, I think it's still on YouTube, where you can see the Pride event that we did back in Mesh a couple of years ago. It was pretty amazing. Lots of stuff you can do, but don't just take your standard stuff and say, oh, now it's immersive event, everything is immersive events. You have to think about what are your goals for the event, and immersive events are going to work best when you want to have this kind of collaboration and communication. So we got a couple minutes for Q&A here. I will leave this up here for a minute. If you want to, that's my LinkedIn. I am Cathy Loves Tech on LinkedIn, immersive producer at outlook.com. Happy to talk with you and give you free consulting, because I just want you to go and run events and this stuff so much. So what questions do you have? Thanks, Ryan. I know Ryan's done a bunch with this too. Ryan's one of our MVPs. It's you know, in some ways what we've done is better. There are a few steps back in terms of the capability that we had in Mesh that we've lost, but it will get there. We need to use it. Really, you know, if we don't use this stuff, it'll get on what I call life support. You know, it'll be there, but they won't be investing in it. So you really got to do things with it. Hannah, oh, Melissa, you had a question.
I don't, Hannah, do you want to go first? I don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, super. My question is probably more about the licensing.
Yes.
In terms of it just looks amazing. Never come across this. This is fantastic. I was in a call with somebody from the charity I work with today, and we want to do a sort of AI workshop adoption and try and get people more involved in it. So I think this would work quite well. And you were saying you only need one premium license, and then everyone else in the tenant can join with a basic license. Was that correct?
Everyone who has a native full account, if you want to have guests come in, and that's usually where the stickler comes. Guest access is documented as supported. I have not been able to get it to work. I've had a support case open for a couple of weeks. I have gone back to my buddies in the product team saying, what the heck? I don't think it's worked since GA in December. But they should be working on that. And then when it's working, then I'll be able to start doing field trips. Like I would love to do a field trip in March and do an International Women's Day exhibit and say, great, I will create them in my own tenant, but I'm not going to go and buy a Teams license, you know, for everybody I want to come in.
Super, thank you.
You're welcome. But yeah, like if you're MVPs, get your MVP groups doing this, because you already have guest tenants in the Microsoft tenant. Everybody in Microsoft in the native tenant, they have Teams premium licenses. You can be doing this for your groups in there, or if you belong to any kind of like customer program where everybody has a group account. And you may not want to do the entire thing in here. Oh, one thing I didn't address was accessibility. Yeah, the team got a lot of exceptions on the accessibility stuff. So if you have somebody who is blind or deaf, it's not going to be the best experience. And for me, I think that's like, you know, holding my meeting in a second floor walk up with no elevators. Kind of uncomfortable there. But at least sometimes what I'll do is maybe I'll have the social event and then people can at least get the audio if they are blind, and, you know, if they're deaf, they can at least get the visuals of things that are going on in there. It's not a great story. I'm not happy about it, but you know, at least try to think of ways that are less exclusionary to have people attend. And, you know, maybe something that I wouldn't ever put mandatory content in here if I know I have people with accessibility needs, but at least maybe being more social.
Can I just chime in for a quick second?
Yeah.
Congratulations on your MVP, Melissa.
Oh,
Thank
Melissa!
you.
Hey!
Fresh
So
off the
Melissa,
press yesterday.
Huh?
Which group are you in?
Power Automate.
Get those Automate people up there. Get them in this immersive stuff. You can have a lot of fun with this. It doesn't do the
I love
integrations
Power
yet. That'll
Automate
come.
so much.
Well, I love Power Automate more now that I have Copilot, because I was really trying to use a lot of the Power Automate stuff like back in 2008, 2019. I'm not a coder, and their promise of, oh, you can do this if you can't code, like, no, I really couldn't.
It's funny you mentioned that because I do programming and I run into issues where I'm like, this would be so much easier if I was just programming this because I would be able to make a loop. And when I have a bunch of variables, they get so sprawled and I'm like, I can't encapsulate any of this. Why is this so difficult?
And what I will do is take a screenshot, throw it into Copilot and say, what the heck? And it's pretty good about coming back with stuff. It still makes stuff up sometimes. Like it say, oh, good, click this button. I don't have that button. Oh, well, maybe this. I don't have that. But overall, it has really revolutionized how I do stuff that has, a lot of code related things. Thanks, Meredith. Thanks for joining us. Go use this. I am happy to set up time to tell you, like if you say, I really have this vision, I will help you implement this vision in Immersive. I don't care if I make money, I can afford to retire. I'm fortunate. So this is, maybe it's a retirement hobby. Maybe it turns into something. Maybe I get MVP status out of it someday. I don't know. I love this stuff and I want people to use it.
And there are a lot of us in the community that love it as well. So beyond just Cathy,
Yes,
a lot of us that are more than willing to help and work with these. So
yeah, but we got to get adoption. I mean, speaking from being inside that group, we talk about being data focused. That group is looking at every little tick of the adoption curve.
Mm-hmm.
People don't use it.
Yeah, Cathy, so I'm going to be reaching out to you soon. We're working on planning an event where we want to include this as part of it. So we figured you'd be a perfect candidate to kind of help with that. So
absolutely. Happy to do it.
We're a little bit over.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to wrap up real quick. Keep asking questions. I have to jump. I have another meeting I have to get to. But I just wanted to thank you, Cathy. And I don't know if everybody realizes, but Cathy also is one of the organizers of Women in M365 as well. So she's very integral to these meetings every month as well. So she's fantastic.
And as soon as we get external access where you don't have to have, like all the guest stuff, I will definitely host a social in here for
that was
Women in
going through my head the whole time, girl. I'm like, oh, we need to do this because I like the chatting part.
Yeah.
Oh, and we do have the Women in M365 book club. We met last week. A couple of those lovely ladies are in here. And we have we have one next month too. It's a little bit different, a little more technical. It's Corinne wants us to work on our Copilot skills. So I think it's on her Slack thing. I'll post to the group, to the M365 group when I have more info, but it's taking one of those challenges that's out there from the Microsoft community and seeing if get us some tech skills as well as those soft skills. So. And we need book suggestions, and please join us. We had a really good time last week.
Awesome.
All right, cool. I'm gonna scoop.
Yep.
It was so nice to see everyone.
It's great to see all you and your avatars. Thank you. I love that you showed up in your avatars today. It makes me happy.
Thank you.
And cats. I love the cats too.
Thank you.
It's one of my favorite parts of coming to the meetings, just saying.
Yeah, it's just great to hang out. And
Okay, I need to go, but guess what? I'm getting a puppy.
Bye.
I'm getting a puppy.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to see the puppy.
Pictures.
Yes.
It's gonna be a mini golden retriever.
What?
I didn't know they were a thing, but I'm getting one in 7 weeks.
Okay.
Oh my goodness, that is so cute.
Okay, I have to really.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
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 Oh God.